Welcome into another episode of the Film Room. I'm really excited to be joined today by Lauren Jensen from over at Creighton University. First and foremost, Lauren, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. You guys are having a heck of a season right now, as per usual, over in Creighton. When you're looking and realizing like, okay, this is senior year, this is my fifth year here. Has it kind of set in for you yet? Halfway through Big East play, like, shoot, this is the last go around.
Yeah, I think honestly just in January it kind of set in. I feel like it was just January 1st and now it's already the end. It's going to be February here and so it's crazy. Time is flying. I know the rest of the season is going to go by fast, but just trying to be in the moment and enjoy it.
No, absolutely. I think that's the crazy part about our sport, right? Like everybody gets so excited for non-con play and what's going to happen, and then you get past like Christmas, it's like, oh wait, the season's like already almost done. Like, we're
Yeah.
March is like just around the corner. Like,
Right.
it happens so fast after all the buildup, and so it's fascinating the way that plays out.
Hmm.
Now that this is, I mean, obviously fourth time going through Big East play.
Yeah.
What stands out to you most in like, especially like, you play a lot of games in the Big East, being able
Hmm.
to stay strong, finish strong in conference play and kind of get through the gauntlet of it. What's been, maybe, what would sophomore Lauren maybe not feel the same way that you do now as a senior?
Oh gosh. There's a lot of things that sophomore Lauren might not might not feel the same as now. I think just staying the course, sticking to what we do and finishing strong. It's a long season, even though like we just mentioned, it goes by really fast. It is a long season at the same time, and you play a lot of games. The Big East is a tough conference, and so just making sure you take it one game at a time and not looking too far ahead and not dwelling on mistakes that you made, because that's inevitably going to happen in basketball. And so, just one game at a time and staying the course.
No, absolutely. Especially with how this year has gone so far in terms of like having a little bit of turnover, which is new for you guys in a way.
Hmm. Yeah.
How did you handle that in non-conference? Like, kind of having to learn some new stuff, implement some new pieces, kind of figure out how that was going to all
Mhm.
fit together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was definitely different with losing Emma last year. I mean, she's obviously a huge part of our team and she's killing it at Colorado State now.
Hmm.
But yeah, we had to figure it out a little bit. I mean, most teams rarely ever have it, nor should you have it all figured out right away from the get-go, but it's something that I haven't really had to deal with as much, besides when I was the new piece that was
Yeah.
being added. And so a little bit different there, but I think everyone who's come in and the ones who have had to step up and play a little bit bigger roles than they have in the past have done great with it. And we're definitely hitting our groove and our stride right now, which is where you want to be at this point in the season.
No, absolutely. What if getting to see Morgan have this season, like she's been a good player for a long time, but like
Yeah.
someone was asking me about her today, and like I mean, she's still shooting almost 50% from three in
Yeah.
Big East play. It's been nuts. What has it kind of
Yeah.
been like getting
Yeah.
to see her hit this stride?
Yeah, no, it's cool to see her do that. I'd talked with her a lot in the past and seasons past, and like there was so much more that she felt that she could give, and you can just see that extra level this
Mhm.
year. She's just playing really calm. She's making good decisions. Um, she's taking great shots, and I think that speaks to her maturity, and the work that she's put in, and it's been really cool to watch. I mean, some of her shooting games, I'm just like, it's crazy. When she misses, I'm honestly shocked.
Yeah, it's
Like
like
it's
how?
it's
When
crazy.
when did you forget how to shoot? Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And like you're speaking on a lot of stuff I want to hit on too, because part of what like I love watching you guys play because number one, you guys just play very different from
Hmm.
most
Yeah.
teams. And also I just love like anytime you hear Flan talk, like he just doesn't sound like a basketball coach. And I mean that in the best
Yeah.
way. Like he just sounds like a normal
Yeah.
human being where a lot of
Yeah.
basketball coaches do not. And he seems someone
Hmm.
who's very correct me if I'm wrong, but he feels just like someone who's very great at like embracing the process and doing that.
Yeah.
And that's obviously coming through in how you're talking. Getting to that point of feeling that yourself as a player though. What has
Hmm.
that been like? Because I think it's one thing to feel bought into like totally understanding that, but also, obviously you've gotten to be through it a couple years now. But getting to that point of like being fully understanding, like, okay, no, like this is, a great shot is so
Hmm.
much more like, being able to understand what looks great and maybe the result isn't always what necessarily determines that.
Yeah. Um, I think I definitely struggled with it more when I was younger, like
Hmm.
every player does. I feel like the past couple of seasons I've definitely settled in to when to take a certain shot, when to pass it, time score situations, and also just pace of play, settling down. It definitely slows down a bit and you get a better feel as you get older, especially being in the system and playing the role that I have for so long. I think that definitely makes it easier for me with that. But I think it's something that comes with experience and there's the rare freshmen that you see that have a really good feel for it, and they're usually the ones that are, in the headlines for good reason. And so, yeah, I've definitely come into my own with that because, I know that I'm going to be able to get to my spots and I just need to trust my shot. And if they don't fall that day, they don't fall that day. But as long as I'm contributing in other ways, I'm cool with that.
Definitely. Kind of continuing on that too, just in terms of learning this offense.
Hmm.
What was that like for you? When you first step on
Yeah.
campus after transferring in and kind of getting a feel for what this is going to look like. What was like number one, like what was that initial reaction like? The number two, like kind of some of the acclimation and maybe growing pains is the wrong way to put it, but like just
Hmm.
like feeling that out and getting used to it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people underestimate just in general how long it can take for a new player to settle in
Hmm.
or a freshman. Especially in our offense because it is so different and unique, very read based and chemistry based. Like you got to know the offense, really know the offense to do it well. Um, and I remember my sophomore summer when I came in, like we were doing a drill and I had never done anything like this. It had always been like pretty structured, but we set a lot of screens in our offense, a lot of off-ball
Oh yeah.
screens. And and this is a drill we do all the time, but we'll have two lines where they're like, okay, like someone sets a screen, someone goes to the rim, someone goes to the 3-point line, you can make a second read. They're like, literally do whatever. Like, you just need to figure it out. And I was like, what?
What?
Like,
Like
excuse me,
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Like it's like great. But I had never like at that point in my career, like in high school and in the other programs I had been in, I was like, I never done anything like that. And so it's definitely a shock. I was like, okay, needing to learn how to slow down. I could obviously like read um defenses, and make a right read in a game, but it's just so unique within our offense and it definitely takes time to settle in. But once you get it, it's a super fun offense to play in.
Yeah, I think I love what you said about people maybe not necessarily understanding how hard it can be to like acclimate to a system. And I think so much of what you said that like I think it's tough because people will watch Creighton, like they can see that it's a beautiful offense, but like you said, I think you don't necessarily understand everything that goes into it. And that's what's so fascinating about watching you guys play. Because again, like so much of it is there. It's not really about rules. It's about, like you
Hmm.
said, reading the game. Where I think, again, sometimes people undersell, like, okay, so often spacing for teams can be rules. And like, if this happens, you cut. If that happens, you do this. And so much of what you guys do is just you just feel it out, man. Like, and
Yeah.
that can be a double-edged sword sometimes because, like, I think
Hmm.
Flan's spoken about it before, but like, oftentimes the worst games are just when you read the court the worst, and like that could. So it's
Yeah.
getting accustomed to that takes time, and like I think that's part of what has made you guys such a special group though, because obviously it's clicked pretty darn well to see that happen.
Yeah, yeah, no, it definitely has, and it helps that we've been playing together for so long. It's also, I mentioned a really fun offense to play in, but also myself as a basketball player, like I've grown so much in just my IQ and how I see the game because of the offense that we play in, and that's something that like I'm really grateful for and glad that I've been able to play in this offense because I think it's pushed me to have to be able to make reads, like secondary reads, even go to like a third, fourth option. Nothing is clear cut, but in basketball you can't perfectly predict everything. And so I'm glad that our offense forces you to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's fun, kind of like you mentioned too, in terms of feeling like just getting more comfortable with yourself as a player. I think there's a lot of insight in that. Like in terms of, I mean, you're an incredibly efficient player, especially for somebody who has the ball in their hands as much and some of the shots you have to take.
Hmm.
And I feel like, at least to me, when players are that efficient, a lot of it is just having a real understanding of yourself and what you're capable of.
Hmm.
Was there kind of a moment when that maybe clicked for you in this with this team and just in general where you felt like, no, I like really understand what I can do and how I can take advantage of things and how I can get comfortable?
Yeah, I think at the end of my sophomore year, I like later in the season, I definitely started to get more comfortable. Like it took me like I was playing and everything my sophomore year and contributing, but it took
Yeah.
me to the end to get comfortable. And into my junior year, um, it was that season where I kind of realized like if I slow down and do my thing and control what I can control, like the rest will take care of itself. To just trust the work that I've put in. I'm really big on that. Like I put in the work and games are a time to just let that work show and to not try to force anything. Because I've always found that when you try to force things, it
Yeah.
doesn't go well. And so I'd say I settled into that my junior year, and then I've been able to add pieces to it and get more comfortable throughout the past couple of years.
Yeah, speaking on adding pieces to it as well, like having that 3x3 experience, I think particularly with, I don't know how much you've watched of Unrivaled, but like just
Yeah.
getting that feel, I think people are like really getting an understanding now that 3x3 is like on this big of a platform. It's like, oh wow, it's like
Yeah.
very different. But
Yeah.
I also think there's a lot of like applications from what you guys do at Creighton obviously played a big part in how well you guys did as a team. But like, what
Hmm.
did you maybe take away most from that experience?
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. 3X is a really fun style of basketball to play. It's fast paced. You can't rely on your help, so you have to guard one on one. And honestly, I think that was probably the biggest thing for me because my defense has come so far. Like I could not keep anyone in front of me when I was younger.
Hey, recognizing is the
Um,
first part in fixing it, right?
yeah. Yeah, and so I've definitely grown in that area and be in that setting with great players and to be able to guard and keep them in front of me one on one, that was definitely like a confidence thing for me and being like, okay, like I have grown and I can guard at the level that I know I can. And so yeah, like most of the time you realize things on offense, but for me it was more defensively, personally. And it also showed that our offense was really well suited for a 3X, which like you just said.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, continuing on, like in terms of just looking ahead at, what drives you and what's kind of kept you going to keep getting better every season, would you have
Mhm.
like what has maybe been the biggest thing kind of instilling that in you or that keeps you, motivated to keep improving on your game?
Yeah, honestly, like it's kind of a basic answer, but it's so true and genuine. Like I love basketball and I
It
love
comes
being
through,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, like I could talk basketball with anyone forever. Like I could be in the gym forever, just like shooting around. It's awesome. I love it. And I think that's been at the core of what's kept me going. I also love seeing progress too. And so I love at the end of every season just sitting down, seeing what I need to get better at, and then actually implementing a plan to get better at that. And then being able to see those results in the next season show through is something that's really satisfying and being able to have that discipline and that work ethic, and see the results carry over into the next season.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Meant, kind of expanding on that in terms of like recognizing what you can get better on and having that sit down. What does that look like for you at the end of a season when you're breaking things down and like kind of approaching what you want to get better at?
Yeah, I always sit down with my position coach at the end of the year. I try to not look at a ton of stats throughout the year and just focus on doing me. I'm aware of the things that I need to do better at during season, and so I try not to lean too heavily into certain numbers. But at the end of the year, I sit down with my position coach, and all the coaches I usually have conversations with, and we talk about the season, what I did good, what I can do better in. We look at the numbers, shot charts, and everything, and then kind of go from there. And most of the time, we're on the same page with what I can get better at. And so, yeah, and most of the time, I already have a pretty good idea of what I do need to get better at, come that time.
What was the big thing to focus on for this summer headed into 2025?
Yeah, the big thing for me is was ball handling, always keeping that sharp, just getting more comfortable. I mean, I can be a combo guard, but I'm more of a two guard. I've had to play the one a little bit and I can bring it up, but just being solid there and then just decision making off the ball screens and getting more comfortable. Um and then whenever I'm in the gym, I always work on threes, ball handling, and then different types of finishes. So just making sure that I had a plan in place to do all that.
So what did that work look like for you in terms of getting more comfortable as a handler? So I think like to me, like
Hmm.
that's the big thing that's shown this year is particularly like being able to just kind of create an isolation a little bit when you've been asked to, like
Hmm.
late clock stuff, which we'll get into in film. But
Hmm.
yeah, what was the work like for you?
Yeah, honestly, I would mix up certain drills just to not have it be too repetitive,
Hmm.
like there's a ton of ball handling drills that you can do. And so I'd start every workout doing that. And I usually would in the past, but I would spend more than just like a warm up on it. Like I'd
Yeah.
spend a good amount of time. And then also whenever I was in the gym with my coach or if I had practice guys in there and just working on live reads and everything, that was really helpful. Um, and just getting more comfortable with my handle.
No, absolutely. To close out before we get into the film, in terms of like things you really want to accomplish, both to close out this season and moving forward, what are things that you're really interested in continuing to get into and focusing on?
Yeah. Um, I'm looking to make a deep run in the tournament, It's always fun. It'd be great to get back to a Sweet 16, get to the Big East championship game and to be able to win that would be great. So those are two goals as a team um that we have. And going forward, gonna try for the WNBA and want to play overseas and everything. So definitely professional aspirations, which I'm really looking forward to.
No, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that for you. I mean, I guess kind of off that too, like you mentioned with making a deep run. I asked this to Emma last year when I met with her, like when you have, I mean, when your first experience being, because correct me if I'm wrong, your first year at Creighton was the year that you guys went to the Elite Eight. Like
Yeah.
when that is your first year, like obviously you guys have still been incredibly successful since then, but like
Hmm.
how does that kind of set the tone for you in terms of everything that you've done since then? Like when you have that taste of like, we can do this and get to this certain point.
Yeah, it definitely it set the bar high and that's good because if the bar isn't high, then you're not going to be able to achieve it. Um it was cool to be able to make that run early and I also think it gave us more confidence too to know that we could do that so early in our career and to be able to get back to that. It's not something that we took for granted when we were in it. It's really hard to make it to an Elite Eight and so we'd love to get back there, but it gave us a lot of confidence to see that we did it when we were young and that we definitely have the talent to do it again.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. You can appreciate it too, because like you said, I think so much of those things happening, like obviously you guys had a hell of a run and just played lights out. But I think there's
Hmm.
also an element too of like sometimes just right place, right time, and like I don't know, not
Hmm.
that I'm only like a couple years older than you, not like that I'm a
Hmm.
grandpa or something, but like it's interesting. I think like the older you get, the more you recognize like, man, sometimes those things it's hard to replicate, and it's about like,
For sure.
especially like we talked about a lot with the process. I think that's kind of trusting that and like working on it to get there. So it's no, it's cool to have that recognition though.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
all right, well, let me get this film pulled up. As we're going through, it's a conversation. I just want to see like mainly what you're seeing and reading and we'll go off of it from
Mhm.
there. But
Cool.
especially mostly off looking at like live reads and just kind of some stuff to understand how you see things.
Hmm.
When you're starting off the ball, and I
Yep.
believe UConn's already switching quite a bit at this point, what are the things
Hmm.
that you're kind of thinking through in your head or feeling out as you're trying to get to a DHO?
Yeah. Obviously the first thing is seeing if they're switching or staying since we are such a heavy screening team, off-ball screening team.
Hmm.
And just making sure that UConn gets up and pressures you a lot. So making sure that you're strong with the pressure if the back door is there. And like it obviously like it obviously was just there if they were denying the handoff, which they were
Hmm.
a pretty good amount this game. Um, and yeah, just making the read based off of their pressure.
No, absolutely. And one of my favorite parts about your game, but also I think just everybody at Creighton, like, and again, not to keep referencing Flan, I listen to stuff all the time because he's really
Yeah.
smart. But like, I think so much of what sets you guys apart, like your lateral movement is really good. Like you're really good at
Hmm.
being able to sell cuts, sell, fakes, anything to open yourself up because, traditionally you guys don't necessarily have a ton of speed going downhill, but like what you can
Yeah.
open up with your shooting gravity is really big stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely, we're never going to be, or I shouldn't say never. Most of the time, we are not going to be the more athletic team.
Yeah.
And so we definitely beat teams with our shooting ability and then using that to get downhill and move off ball.
And especially like I mean, I'd seen you play in AAU when you were with North Tartan, so like I know you've been able to
Hmm.
like do a lot of this stuff as a shooter in general, but like what was maybe most key for you in getting comfortable as a player who could like create so much without even having the ball before getting to the ball?
Yeah, no, it's definitely when I was younger, I would always just constantly go one speed.
Hmm.
And so when I got to college, they're like, you need to slow down, like it will help you. And I had to retrain my brain. I think a lot of players struggle with that too. It
Yeah.
just kind of comes with maturity. Um, but yeah, I've always been able to, or I shouldn't say always been able to. I was always more of a three-point shooter, and getting downhill is something that I added more to my game as time went on.
No, for certain. So continuing on, when you face like, so I think people think of switching just as like one thing, but like there's so many different ways it can happen, right? When you
Hmm.
get this kind of an aggressive switch, how does that change up stuff for you?
Yeah, it definitely makes it harder to make a read.
Hmm.
That's why they do it. They get out in your face, they pressure you. And I mean, it's meant to throw you out of the rhythm. I mean, most teams who switch, if they are going to be aggressive, you're obviously going to get a mismatch most of the time. I think this is against Arnold, and so that's
Hmm.
not really a mismatch. But a lot of times, if it's set between a post and a guard, I'll get a post switched onto me. And as our offense, we're pretty good at picking out mismatches. And so it definitely switches up the read, gets the ball out of my hands. But usually knowing, and that's the thing about our offense, knowing where we're going to be and what spots we are on the floor helps to make that read.
Absolutely. And then that's when you get something like this because, all right, cool, great that you're switching, but then when you know you don't want anything on a 45, then wide open shot, right?
Yeah.
No, so it's always about counters. Again, that's the fun part. Like I think people can
Yeah.
think like it's just the shooting, but no, there's so many different reads and actions happening, and it's difficult not to love. Um,
Yeah.
so when you get into a situation when it is like shot clock's off, especially right here,
hmm
when again, so facing tight pressure, what are the things you're feeling out, kind of looking for when you're getting into the situation?
Yeah, things I'm looking for is honestly to just go get the ball.
Yeah.
I think Paige did a good job denying me there, and most teams do because most teams know that I am gonna go get the ball. But um, once I get the ball and I'm able to have it in my hands, if I don't have it in my hands already, just trying to read the situation and whatever action we get into.
Hmm. And then right here too, like when, because at least I feel like you're trying to attack the switch pocket, right? Like you
Yeah.
have a big trying to get a mismatch. What are the things you're looking for when you're trying to isolate the wrong way to put it, but when you're attacking a switch pocket? So when all right,
Yeah.
here's my opportunity. What are you like looking for in that?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, you can see her shot there. She got a hand on it. She tipped it. But if they have a hand down, I'm a shooter first, and so making sure that they respect that 3-point shot. And if I can get him off balance a little bit, get him to lunge at a shot, or just get him going laterally, that's usually the sequence that I go through with that read.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's the fun part. Like again, so much of, I mean, I'm sure you watch a lot of the W, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, especially with like, I mean, defenses are getting so much more switch heavy. Like watching Minnesota
Hmm.
this year, like
Yeah,
everything is on a string like that. And yeah, so I think learning and seeing like how people attack the switch pocket is really interesting because like some people are
yeah.
so different in it. But um, so right here, because we like you talked about with getting into your handle and drives just in general. What are you looking for here, or what when you feel this out after you get it under? Um,
Hmm.
what makes you hit the gas here?
Yeah. Um, Honestly, I saw that she had her top foot out and the way
Hmm.
that she closed out, and so that kind of it's tough because you got to get a hand up anyways. But she was trailing the play a little bit with the screen, and so attacking that outside hip. I mean, as a defender, it's going to be hard to be able to cover ground the way that the closeout was, and so just doing a quick attack, and trying to optimize the options there.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that because I think so often like if a player just sees an under right away, like, oh, I'm shooting it, but I think you do such a great
Hmm.
job right here of, like you said, attacking hip, seeing that, and then making this a play for yourself too, just getting back in and easy stuff. That's what you
Yeah,
guys do all day,
thanks.
especially like, yeah, of course. Um, Especially with relocation though, because I think so much of this offense is like you have to understand not just your own ability to space, but how everybody else can. What was
Hmm.
maybe most important for reinforcing that for you and continuing to get used to that? Because again, I think that's just such a different aspect compared to a lot of other offenses.
Yeah, I mean, spacing is huge in our offense. I mean, if we don't have proper spacing, we're not going to be able to get the cuts at the rim. We can all shoot it, and none of us are super ultra athletic, and so we're not necessarily going to square you up and go one on one and dribble the air out of the ball. And so we get downhill by attacking closeouts. And if we have poor spacing, people will be able to be in the gap and cover that. And so it's something that we drill every day in practice. And being such a veteran heavy team, we all have a really good feel for it. We can feel when we have poor spacing because it definitely stunts our offense.
Yeah. Was there ever like a thing that, or maybe just a moment in general that like kind of challenged your idea of what spacing is when you got here? Like, did you kind of have it redefined for you? Like, no, okay, because I think so often people just think spacing is shooting. Not saying that was you, but in general, like
Yeah.
when you came in, was there like did something kind of change up for you and how you saw it, or like how has that kind of evolved for you?
Yeah, I don't know if there, or I guess I can't think of an exact moment that it
Hmm.
changed. I think it was more of just a gradual change, but there's a lot of different ways in which spacing applies. Not just 3-point shooting, but we talk a lot about like even in the post, especially with Morgan in there, it's like
Yeah.
if you're not spaced out, like they're gonna make it easy, or you're making it easy for them to double to crowd her and you're not doing her any favors. Same with having a mismatch. Like if I'm on the perimeter, if Kiani or Molly or someone gets a mismatch, like we always are making sure to space because it's just going to make it so much harder to get downhill. And so it's not necessarily always just 3-point shooting, which is what I was taught, or mainly taught with spacing prior to coming here.
Yeah, no, I love that recognition and understanding because exactly like I think part of what again, what sets you guys apart is like what you guys do playing out of the post because so much was like, when you think of the UCLA game from last year, like you guys took advantage of them in the first half. It's like, cool, you guys want to switch
Mhm.
everything. Here's a mismatch in the post, and then we'll attack out it. Either we're scoring out of it or we're gonna get a pass out of it for an open three. And like, exactly. So it's just fun to kind of like see how those things progress and challenge those
Mhm.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, Especially in looking at cutting too, because I think cutting is such a big part of this offense, right?
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
uh, Getting more comfortable as a cutter, what was that like for you and kind of feeling that out? And especially too here, like just seeing that.
Yeah, it was our offense is so unique and so just all of the aspects of it are really intertwined. Like we were talking about earlier, there's no specific rules with anything, and so just getting comfortable with the spacing, the screening, the cutting, because even the screening can they turn into cuts really fast with
Hmm.
slips and curls and everything, and so just getting comfortable with all of it in general took a little bit. I also think finishing your cut too is really important
I love that
and
point.
something that is underrated because a lot of times you'll just kind of cut out or players will cut out early or their eyes will go away from it too soon and it might open up late. And that's something that we kind of struggled with a little bit earlier in the season is where we weren't finishing our cuts and we also weren't getting deep enough too. We talk all the time about actually touching the paint. When you get into the lane and actually moving bodies and that way our offense can get flowing better.
Definitely. Well, I actually showed the wrong clip. This one I meant for late clock stuff. So as soon as it hits 10 seconds, I notice you like going to go get the ball. So when you get into
Mhm.
this kind of scenario, kind of like we looked at earlier, what are the things you're trying to feel out in this?
Yeah, honestly, just seeing where everyone is at, kind of seeing who's around me. If Mal's gonna come up and send me a ball screen, if someone's gonna come to a go screen, if I already have a good matchup, and if I'm just gonna take them one on one. And so, just doing a quick survey of the court and where everyone is my first read, and then just kind of the little reads within that of kind of squaring them up, and then seeing where they jump and being able to make plays.
Yeah, and then obviously a really great finish here too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, excuse me. But yeah, so here's that cut that I was mentioning. Now that actually, sorry, I looked at my notes wrong. It always happens.
Yeah,
But
you're good.
yeah, especially with the face cut here. Like you said, in terms of screens turning into cuts, I love that because right here,
Mhm,
you're getting a screen, anticipation from your defender, and then bam, face cut. Like, so that's again like really great recognition because so often like one action just isn't an action, right? Like an action
mhm.
is just the continuity. Because to me, the offense is continuity. It's like
Yeah,
just
for
keeping the
sure.
ball alive, right?
Hmm.
Um, right here, getting into DHOs again too. So when you're getting that kind of pressure and when somebody's trying to deny you a DHO, what do you think is
Hmm.
probably like the most important thing for you in terms of getting open for it?
Yeah, I think just changing speed. It's a tough cover, especially a lot of times we get into it with Mal.
Hmm.
And a lot of teams will sag off of her. Markowski, I think that's Markowski. She's
Yeah.
um coming up and oh well, is that Brooke? Yeah. So that's not Mal in that instance, but a lot of the
Mhm.
times it is Mal. And so just being able to change change pace because most players are going to fight over the top just because I can shoot that.
Hmm.
And if they deny it, just making the right read if it's a curl or just trying to get them off balance so I can go get the ball.
Definitely. Just a couple more clips to get into. So like when thinking of like this game, when you guys play a team with like tons of length,
Hmm.
um, gonna play in a drop too with their big, how
Yeah.
does that kind of change up things comparatively against like a team that's maybe a little bit smaller, a little bit more switchy?
Yeah, no, it definitely changes things for us. I mean, K-State was so long. I know in emphasis this game was getting into ball screens,
Hmm.
which Leah's does a pretty good job of squeezing up on that ball screen. We knew they were going to be in drop coverage, and so Molly and Kiani and I, we got a good amount of shots coming off the ball screen, and so finding pockets within their defense that we can score is definitely an emphasis. Flan is a great basketball mind, and our coaching staff is awesome as well. And so they do a good job of making sure that we have a good game plan and they can put us in a position to win.
Absolutely. And then like when you are facing like a true five, like a legit center, which I
Hmm.
think part of what's been different about the Big East is like the Big East has just like gotten a lot smaller over the last
Yeah,
couple of years, I feel like.
yeah, it has.
When you are facing more of like a true five and you're working more pacing and like kind of playing a little bit slower, what do you maybe like, how does that kind of change up the way that you're approaching, coming off a ball screen?
Yeah, I think it changes it, and they're more than likely not gonna switch out quick, kind of like that earlier clip with the
Hmm.
Yukon and Arnold that you showed. They're probably not gonna do a quick hedge. And so you know that you'll have a little bit more time and you can probe off that ball screen, and so you have more time to get into your shot or to hit the fill or to hit the roll.
Hmm.
And so it definitely changes things in that aspect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then like especially too, like obviously great recognition here because it's a peel switch. Like I think getting peels, like more teams are starting to do it, which I think is the way to go because peel switches are just
Hmm.
tough.
Yeah.
But yeah. So here too, I want to ask you just in general about like your jab series and the way you use fakes.
Hmm.
Number one, you're really good at using your jabs and
Thank you.
fakes. But like, yeah, of course. But like when you're getting into them, because number one, I think like so often people bitch about AAU for the wrong reasons. I complain about AAU because people use their handle. Like somebody might have
Yeah.
great handles, but is your
Hmm.
handle actually doing anything? Are you going anywhere with it? And
Right.
that's how I tend to feel about like fakes and jabs. But I feel like you're really
Mhm.
efficient with them. So what was most important for you in kind of most like understanding how to use fakes and jabs to really open yourself up?
Yeah. Basketball can be really simple if you do the right things. And that's the way that I look at shot fakes and jabs. I think being able to shoot the ball for me has really laid the foundation
Hmm.
for the rest of my game because that is the primary way that I'll get downhill. I can definitely take it off the dribble and like we just looked at with those end of clock clips, but you don't need usually more than three jabs. If you look at the rim, do a jab. It's all about just getting the defender on their heels, and once you have that, it's it's easier from there.
No, absolutely. Because exactly, I mean, you create space and get feet moving just by running through your motions, getting to where you need to, and then easy shot.
Hmm.
Um, And then to close up, I think again, like we talked a little bit about with just being efficient and understanding what you do well. I think using your own gravity as a playmaker is something that you've
Hmm.
really tapped into over the last year or two, kind of getting more comfortable with that. Like you mentioned, growing from being like more of just a straight two guard to being able to be a combo a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, what are the things that you're kind of like looking at and focused on with like, okay, like knowing like, all right, this is what I'm going to draw as a shooter, what kind of take advantage of and move the ball if I don't have a shot.
What are some things that I'm looking at?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think if I'm gonna draw two, like this clip here, just making sure that I am going through the right reads. I think as I've gotten older, I've definitely gotten one more comfortable in our offense and the game has just slowed down a little bit more. And so just being comfortable with the ball in my hands too
Hmm.
has helped a lot with making some of those reads for my teammates.
Absolutely. And to bounce off that too, I think what I mean, I feel like you do a really good job of this, but like, and maybe it's not something that you necessarily even think about, but
Hmm.
in terms of like feeling comfortable in knowing what shots you can get to and what you can take, but also wanting to make plays for others, how have you kind of found the balance in that? Particularly as, being somebody who is like the leading ball handler or leading shot
Hmm.
taker, I should say, like, finding that balance. What has that been like for you?
Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah, I honestly don't know if I can pinpoint a necessary process that goes into that. I think it really just comes with feel
Yeah.
and seeing how the defense is playing me, how they're guarding our offense as a whole, how our offense is doing, and it just really has come with comfortability
Yeah,
and
no,
knowing my teammates as well.
mhm. Yeah, no, I love that point because I think that's kind of the trick in it, right? Like, I think so much of being effective at that is like just not thinking and like moving the
Hmm.
ball, which easier said than done. I was terrible at that. I was so bad at not like, overthinking everything and then, it
Hmm.
has an impact on it. But, um, well, Lauren, I really appreciate your time. This was an absolute
Yeah.
blast. Is there anything you want to shout out or mention before we get out of here?
Um, I just want to say thanks for having me. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, I can talk basketball forever, and so
that
this
makes
was
two of us.
a great conversation. You're a great basketball mind, and it's obvious
That
talking
is
with
like
you.
that's the
So,
best thing that I could ever hear. I appreciate that. Thank you. Um,
yeah, no, of course.
yeah, well, to everyone watching and keeping up, of course, keep up with all things Creighton women's basketball. A lot of season left ahead for the Blue Jays. I think I have you guys as a 7 seed currently. I do
Nice.
bracketology over at the Athletic as well, so
Cool.
room to keep moving up
Nice.
in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and enjoy the rest of your day to everyone watching.